Before this day closes, something tied to your name is going to break open. And I need you to hear me like your future depends on it. Because in a way, it does. There are moments when God stops allowing people to mishandle your story in secret. There are moments when heaven interrupts the private rooms where your name has been discussed, judged, twisted, and reduced. And this is one of those moments. A hidden truth about you has been sitting behind the teeth of someone who knows more than they admitted. And now the pressure of God's justice is pressing on their conscience. They tried to keep the old version of you alive because that version made them feel powerful. They wanted you wounded, reactive, explainable, easy to provoke, easy to label. But something happened in the hidden place. You did not collapse. You did not chase them. You did not beg to be understood. You went quiet. And while they mistook your quietness for defeat, God was rebuilding your authority in a place no enemy could enter. I have seen this over the years when the Lord begins to raise someone he has chosen. The first sign is not applause, it is separation. People lose access. Conversations dry up. False narratives start choking on their own weight. And now one of those two people is reaching the limit. They can feel it. They can see it. They know the story they told about you no longer matches the person standing in front of them. Your peace has become evidence. Your restraint has become testimony. Your private healing has become a public contradiction to every lie they planted. This is why the atmosphere feels urgent. This is why your spirit has been restless. This is why you may have felt, deep inside, that something was about to be exposed without you lifting a finger. God is not asking you to fight in the mud. He is calling you to stand still while the truth rises with its own voice. If this message is already touching a place you have carried in silence, right, God is revealing the truth in the comments. Because your agreement matters in this season. And listen closely, what they are about to admit is not just that they were wrong. It is that you were being protected, prepared, and marked by God while they were busy misunderstanding you. Stay with this message until the end. Because the next revelation may explain why your private life became the very thing they could not control. If this word is speaking to your spirit, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with someone who needs to know that God is still defending their name. I remember a woman who came to me after a season where two people had taken pieces of her private life and turned them into a story she barely recognized. They did not know the nights she had cried with her Bible open beside her. They did not know the mornings she had forced herself to get up, wash her face, pray with a voice that sounded broken, and keep moving because something inside her still believed God was not finished. They only saw what they wanted to see. They saw her silence and called it guilt. They saw her distance and called it pride. They saw her healing and called it pretending. And for a while, she wanted to defend herself so badly that it almost consumed her. She wanted to post the truth. She wanted to call everyone who had heard the lie. She wanted to drag the whole hidden conversation into the light and say, "Now look at what really happened." But one night, while she was praying alone, she felt the Lord impress something deep into her spirit. "Do not spend your strength proving what I am already protecting." That sentence became a line in the sand. She stopped chasing explanations. She stopped feeding people updates. She stopped opening her wounds for people who only wanted evidence, not understanding. And slowly, something changed. Her face softened. Her voice steadied. Her home became peaceful again. She started laughing without checking who might judge her. She started walking into rooms without carrying the invisible burden of being misrepresented. Months passed, and the people who had once whispered about her began to notice what they could not explain. She was not shrinking. She was not bitter. She was not begging to be included. She was becoming whole. Then, one afternoon, in a conversation she was not even present for, one of the two people who had helped twist her story finally said what everyone in that room felt but had been afraid to admit. We were wrong about her. She was not falling apart. She was being restored. And when I heard that, I thought about how often God lets a person be misunderstood for a season, not because he is absent, but because he is building something that cannot be destroyed by public opinion. I have learned that the people who mock your quiet season often become the first witnesses of your harvest. That is why I need you to hear this clearly. Your silence did not mean you had no answer. Your silence meant God was writing one deeper than words. You may not have lived that exact story, but you know the ache of being judged while you were still bleeding, the exhaustion of being watched while you were trying to heal, the holy frustration of knowing the truth and still being told to wait. But waiting was not wasted. Heaven was not idle. God was not ignoring the rooms where your name was mishandled. He was preparing the moment when the fruit of your life would speak louder than the mouths that tried to define you. And this is where your story becomes deeper. Because what they saw in you was not weakness disappearing, it was God forming authority. The reason your private life disturbed them so deeply is because it stopped being available for their interpretation. They were used to reading you like an open wound. They were used to guessing your emotions, predicting your reactions, measuring your value by how quickly you responded, how much you explained, how badly you wanted to be understood. But then something changed. You pulled your soul out of the marketplace. You stopped letting unclean hands touch sacred things. You stopped handing your inner world to people who only knew how to turn intimacy into information. And that is when your life became dangerous to the false narrative. Because as long as they could see every bruise, every breakdown, every unfinished prayer, they felt powerful. But when God began healing you in secret, they lost the map. They could no longer tell where you were weak. They could no longer locate the old doorway into your pain. They could no longer use your vulnerability as a handle to drag you back into the version of yourself they understood. I want you to understand this. I have seen people become most powerful not when everyone finally applauded them, but when they no longer needed applause to obey God. That is exactly what happened to you. You did not become stronger because people finally clapped. You became stronger because heaven became enough. You became quieter, not because your voice disappeared, but because your voice was being purified. You became more private, not because you had something shameful to hide, but because you finally understood that not every eye deserves access to what God is still forming. There is a kind of growth that cannot survive in the noise. There is a kind of calling that must be protected before it can be revealed. There is a kind of healing that looks like disappearance to people who only value performance. And this is why they misread you. They thought your silence was emptiness, but it was consecration. They thought your distance was arrogance, but it was discernment. They thought your calm was fake, but it was the first fruit of a soul no longer ruled by their approval. C. S. Lewis, in Mere Christianity, emphasized that true humility is not about thinking less of yourself, but about being free from the constant need to keep looking at yourself. That is the kind of freedom God has been building in you. You are no longer orbiting around their opinion. You are no longer checking the mirror of their reaction to decide whether you are worthy. You are no longer begging people who wounded you to certify your healing. And because you stopped performing, their accusations started sounding strange even to them. How can they keep calling you unstable when your peace keeps speaking? How can they keep calling you broken when your life keeps bearing fruit? How can they keep calling you defeated when your spirit keeps rising without their permission? This is the part that unsettles them. Your private life became proof that God was doing something they could not supervise. They wanted access to the construction site, but God closed the gate. They wanted to inspect the foundation, but God worked beneath the surface. They wanted to announce your failure, but heaven was preparing your endurance. And now, what was hidden is beginning to glow, not loudly, not desperately, but steadily, like a lamp in a house no longer afraid of the dark. If you know your quiet season was not empty, but holy, write in the comments, God was building me in private. Because this is not just about them noticing you changed. This is about one of them finally seeing the truth they had been avoiding. And what they saw next may explain why the lie could not survive. There were two people connected to the old story, but they were not carrying the same role. You need to see this clearly, because sometimes the person who speaks the loudest is not the only one God is dealing with. One of them was the architect of the false narrative. That person took fragments of your life, moments they did not understand, seasons they were never invited to interpret, and built a version of you that made them feel superior. They spoke with confidence, because confidence can disguise insecurity. They acted as if they knew your heart, your motives, your future, your private battles, but they were only describing the shadow of their own bitterness. They needed you to stay small because your rising exposed something unfinished in them. They needed your name to remain attached to confusion because your clarity made them uncomfortable. But the second person was different. The second one watched. They listened. They may have laughed at the wrong time, stayed quiet in the wrong room, nodded when they should have interrupted, and allowed the lie to keep breathing because silence felt safer than courage. And I know that part may hurt, because betrayal from the loud person is painful, but betrayal from the quiet witness cuts in a different place. That person knew enough to question the story. They saw enough to feel the tension. They sensed that something was not right, but they did not want to lose their position, their comfort, their connection, or their approval. So they let the first person keep speaking. They let your name be handled carelessly. They let the room believe what was convenient. But God has a way of disturbing the conscience of a witness. He has a way of making silence feel heavy when truth is being buried. He has a way of bringing someone to the point where pretending becomes more exhausting than confession. I have seen this many times. When God matures a person in silence, even their enemies eventually run out of believable accusations. That is what is happening now. The old story is running out of air. The person who once stood on the side, trying not to get involved, is beginning to feel the weight of what they allowed. They have watched you change without becoming cruel. They have watched you heal without turning cold. They have watched you move forward without dragging everyone into public shame. And that kind of grace is hard to argue with. At some point, the second person looked at the first and realized, we were wrong about them. They were not being destroyed. They were being restored. That sentence may not have sounded dramatic to everyone else, but in the spirit, it was a hammer hitting the foundation of a lie. Because when one witness tells the truth, the whole structure begins to tremble. The aggressive one may resist it, They may roll their eyes, change the subject, act offended, or try to pull the conversation back into accusation. But something has already shifted. The room has heard a crack in the old narrative. The witness has spoken. The lie has been challenged by someone who was once close enough to help protect it. And this is why you do not need to force your defense. God knows how to raise a voice from the very circle that misunderstood you. He knows how to make the hidden observer admit what the public critic refused to see. He knows how to let your fruit answer what your mouth never had to explain. And what they admitted next is the part that may shake you. Because it was not only about your past, it was about your calling. What they admitted was not small. It was not just, maybe we judged too quickly, or maybe we did not know the full story. No. What they were forced to recognize was far deeper. You were not being ruined. You were being separated. You were not losing your place. God was removing you from rooms too small for your assignment. You were not becoming invisible. You were being hidden until your spirit could carry what your next season requires. That is the part they could not explain. They expected your isolation to make you desperate. They expected your silence to make you bitter. They expected the distance to turn you cold, unstable, and hungry for their approval. But instead, something holy began to form in you. Your eyes changed. Your reactions changed. Your appetite changed. You stopped feeding on drama. You stopped drinking from the cup of human validation. You stopped letting every rumor pull you out of prayer. And when they looked again, they realized the person they tried to define no longer existed. Over the years, I have learned that God does not waste the rooms where people cried alone. He turns them into altars. That is what happened in your hidden season. The place that felt like abandonment became a meeting place. The nights that felt unbearable became training ground. The silence that felt like punishment became protection. And the pain they thought would bury you became the soil where God planted authority. C. Z. Lewis wrote in The Problem of Pain that God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. And while that does not mean pain is easy, it means your suffering was not meaningless. God was not absent from the ache. He was shaping something in you that comfort alone could never produce. They admitted, whether with their mouths or with their fear, that your peace is not normal. It does not come from perfect circumstances. It does not come from everyone liking you. It does not come from being understood by the people who once mishandled your heart. Your peace comes from a deeper place. It comes from being held by God when no one else could see you. It comes from learning how to pray with tears in your throat. It comes from surviving the season where the people who should have covered you became the people who questioned you. And now they can feel the difference. They can sense that you are not you are marked, chosen, set apart, not in a proud way, not in a way that makes you better than others, but in a way that makes you responsible for something sacred. You were not isolated because you were rejected. You were separated because you were being prepared. That is the confession beneath every uncomfortable glance, every unfinished apology, every sudden curiosity about your life. They know something is on you now. They know your strength did not come from revenge. They know your calm did not come from denial. They know your glow did not come from pretending. It came from surrender. It came from God rebuilding the places they never had permission to enter. And this is why their old words are losing power. How can they keep calling you broken when God has made you whole in places they cannot reach? How can they keep calling you weak when your restraint has become stronger than their noise? How can they keep calling you lost when your steps are becoming more ordered, more peaceful, more certain? The truth is this: they did not just admit that you survived. They admitted that you were being formed for something greater. And now the next layer must be spoken. Because the reason they are so disturbed is that they no longer have access to the version of you they knew how to control. They are disturbed because the door is no longer open. That is the part they did not prepare for. They thought distance was temporary. They thought your healing would still leave a side entrance for them. They thought, if enough time passed, they could return with a soft voice, a casual message, a half apology, and step right back into the rooms of your life as if nothing sacred had been violated. But this time, something is different. You are not standing at the door waiting to be chosen. You are not checking your phone like your peace depends on their explanation. You are not rehearsing the conversation where they finally understand what they did. God has taught you that access is not the same as forgiveness. You can release someone in prayer and still refuse to hand them the key to your inner world. You can bless them from a distance and still keep the boundary that saved your soul. You can forgive without returning to the cage. I have seen too many tender-hearted believers confuse mercy with going back to the same place that broke them. And I do not want that for you. Mercy is holy. But mercy is not permission for someone to keep mishandling what God restored. Love is powerful. But love without truth becomes a doorway for repeated harm. The spirit of C. Den. Lewis's writings often reminds us that Christian love is not sentimental weakness. Real love is tied to truth, holiness, and the transformation of the will. That means you do not have to prove your heart is clean by giving unsafe people unlimited access. You do not have to answer every message. You do not have to reopen every conversation. You do not have to explain the boundary to someone who benefited from you not having one. This is why they are panicking. They remember the old pattern. They remember how one sentence could pull you into anxiety. They remember how one accusation could make you defend yourself for hours. They remember how one cold silence could make you chase closure from people who were not mature enough to give it. But now they are reaching for the old buttons, and nothing is responding. The system has changed. The password has expired. The gate is guarded by wisdom, and the person they once knew how to provoke has been taught by God how to remain still. If they apologize, listen with discernment. If they confess, receive only what the Lord gives you peace to receive. If they cry, do not confuse emotion with repentance. Repentance has fruit. Change has weight. A sorry mouth without a surrendered heart is only another performance. And you are no longer available for performances. Your peace cost too much. Your healing took too long. Your private restoration was too holy to be placed back into careless hands. If you are learning to forgive without handing your peace back to the wrong hands, comment, "My peace belongs to God," because now we need to talk about the part they cannot understand at all. Your silence was never emptiness. It was strategy under heaven. Your silence was not emptiness. It was not weakness. It was not you having nothing to say. It was heaven teaching you when not to waste sacred breath on people who had already decided to misunderstand you. They wanted a reaction because a reaction would have given them material. They wanted you emotional, defensive, loud, desperate, explaining yourself until your spirit was exhausted. They wanted you to step into the mud so they could point and say, "See, this is who they really are." But God held you back. He put a holy restraint over your mouth. He trained your hands not to reach for every argument. He trained your heart not to run after every person who misread you. He trained your spirit to understand that not every accusation deserves access to your energy. And that is why your silence became strategy. I have learned that silence, when surrendered to God, is not absence. It is a sanctuary. It is the place where your emotions stop ruling you. It is the place where your old impulses die quietly. It is the place where God teaches you that being heard by Him is greater than being understood by people who are committed to distortion. You did not lose your voice. You recovered your authority over it. There is a difference. A person without a voice is trapped. A person who chooses when to speak is free. And you, chosen one, are being moved from reaction into authority. That is why the old tactics stopped working. They could no longer pull you into the same cycle. They could no longer bait you with half-truths, cold messages, strange silence, sudden accusations, or emotional traps disguised as concern. You started recognizing the pattern before it swallowed you. You started praying before replying. You started pausing before explaining. You started asking, Lord, is this mine to answer? Or is this something you are already handling? And every time you chose peace over performance, something broke off you. Every time you refused to defend your old self to people who were not ready to honor your new self, another chain lost its grip. Every time you let God be your witness, your soul became harder to manipulate. C.S. Lewis, in The Weight of Glory, points us toward the seriousness of every human soul, reminding us that we are not dealing with disposable characters in our private drama, but with eternal beings. That truth matters here, because your silence was not hatred. It was not revenge. It was not you pretending they had no soul. It was you refusing to let wounded people turn you into a wounded weapon. You chose not to destroy them with what you knew. You chose not to expose everything you could have exposed. You chose not to become the thing that hurt you. That is maturity. That is grace under pressure. That is spiritual strength with clean hands. And they do not know what to do with that, because the world understands retaliation, but it does not understand consecration. The world understands clapping back, but it does not understand kneeling down. The world understands proving a point, but it does not understand protecting your peace like it belongs to God. Your silence confused them because it carried no fear. It carried no begging. It carried no secret invitation for them to return and control the narrative again. It carried a message without words. I am not available for the old war. And now your private joy is becoming the evidence they cannot erase. Because if your silence was the sanctuary, your restored life is the testimony standing at the door. Your private joy is what exposed them. Not because you were trying to prove anything, but because healed fruit is impossible to hide forever. They could argue with your words. They could twist your silence. They could question your motives, rewrite your past, and pretend your distance was pride. But they could not explain the evidence of a soul that was no longer begging to be rescued by the same hands that once wounded it. They saw something in you that contradicted the story they had been telling. They saw calm where they expected chaos. They saw softness where they expected bitterness. They saw strength without cruelty, peace without performance, confidence without arrogance. And that disturbed them more than any argument ever could. Because if you were truly the person they described, why were you becoming more whole? If you were truly defeated, Why did your spirit look lighter? If you were truly abandoned, why did your life begin to carry the quiet fragrance of God's restoration? I want you to understand this. I have seen God heal people so quietly that by the time others notice, the miracle is already mature. That is what happened to you. While they were discussing your private life, God was cultivating it. While they were interpreting your absence, God was filling your hidden rooms with strength. While they were waiting for you to break, heaven was teaching you how to breathe again. Your joy is not revenge. Your joy is resurrection evidence. It is the proof that what tried to bury you did not have the final word. It is the sign that the wound did not become your identity. It is the announcement that God can restore a person so deeply that even their enemies have to question the lie they believed. And listen, this joy does not have to be loud. It does not have to be posted, explained, displayed, or defended. Some of the most powerful victories in your life will never be understood by the crowd because they happened in the place where only God saw you keep going. Maybe your victory is that you slept peacefully after months of anxiety. Maybe your victory is that you no longer rehearse their words in your mind. Maybe your victory is that you can hear their name and not feel your stomach drop. Maybe your victory is that you are finally laughing again without feeling guilty for surviving. Those are holy signs. Those are not small things. Those are the fingerprints of restoration. And this is why their confession is coming with pressure. Your life is making their accusation look outdated. Your healing is becoming a witness against their version of the story. Your peace is standing in the room even when you are not there. God did not only heal you from what they did, He healed you from needing them to admit it before you could move forward. And because of that, the old narrative is losing power. But God is not finished revealing what He placed inside you. God's vindication is not coming so you can stand over them and say, "I was right." That would be too small for what He has been doing in you. Heaven is not exposing the truth merely to satisfy your ego, embarrass your enemies, or give you a moment of emotional revenge. God is revealing what was hidden so you can finally stop living under a sentence He never wrote over your life. There is a freedom deeper than being believed by people. There is a freedom deeper than hearing someone admit they misjudged you. There is a freedom deeper than watching the old story collapse in front of the very ones who helped build it. It is the freedom of no longer needing their confession in order to be whole. That is where God is taking you. Not into pride, not into bitterness, not into the exhausting need to replay every wound until someone finally claps for your pain. He is taking you into release. He is teaching you how to walk without carrying the courtroom inside your chest. For too long, part of you may have been waiting for the perfect moment when they would say, "We were wrong. We hurt you. We misunderstood what God was doing in your life." And yes, that moment may come. It may already be forming. But your healing cannot depend on whether their mouth becomes honest.